Okay, everything should be working. Let me just check my. Why is this? I don't know what my camera is. Okay, there we go. That I don't think it fixed it at all, but we're just gonna go with it. Today we are going to talk about. I have two videos pulled up. One of them is somewhat a skit, somewhat not. And this is a channel we've. I don't know. I'm not subscribed to. I thought it was. This is the Grim. I don't know how to explain this channel. It's interesting. It's this old guy that gives advice, and it's always like I don't know if he's actually a mobster or used to be, but he like plays one in all these shorts, and it's always entertaining. So we'll go through this, but yeah, I'm staying consistent on Wednesdays. I feel like I've been good about that, and yeah, okay.
Books solve
Wow, that's loud. Okay, it always changes the
three
settings.
major problems in my life.
Whatever problem you have, ask
Hopefully that's
yourself
better.
who benefits. Your problems are the Suki solutions.
I think the biggest problem of our time is focus. Distraction is destruction. No focus means no attention, means no impact, means no purpose, means no bread to the system.
There's something very important in that idea is that your attention is the most valuable thing you have. You can go in all sorts of directions with this sort of idea, but like think of anything worthwhile you have to devote time for, you have to devote your energy towards. And we so often give our energy to things that don't really matter. Think about politics, think about the news in general, think about sports, think about even people that you disagree with, even people you hate. You're giving them your energy, you're giving them your attention, you're giving them your time. And let's just take that to the flip side. Like what if you have someone that really means something to you? You're taking away your attention from that person. You're taking away the good you could be putting and building into that relationship, and instead you're allowing it to become something that's perverted by anger, perverted by hate.
There is a book that solves that.
Solved it for me.
Which book?
Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It's about a future society where people have stopped reading.
That's okay. I thought he was gonna pick Brave New World. I mean, I saw the thumbnail, so I knew Fahrenheit 451 was one of the books. But I thought he was going to choose Brave New World because that's essentially what Brave New World is. Uh, you have the two main dystopian novels that people like to point to and say that have really came true are 1984, which is ruling by force, which is the government, the systems that be control everything, where you have Brave New World, which is ruling by distraction, and that everything is so pleasant, everything's so nice that you don't realize that you're in chains, that you don't realize that you're stagnant, that there's no way that you could even possibly revolt because you're so distracted. But Fahrenheit 451 definitely has those angles and those elements to it because one of the most interesting aspects of the book, it's not even so much the story. The story is very interesting, but it's the chief firefighter explaining why literature is banned, explaining why books are burned, and explaining why there is no set of discourse, and all of the media that you consume is just sensationalized and summarized into a headline, and that is all you see. And it's somewhat scary because I don't know if Ray Bradbury was really understanding that's like that's the world we live in today. So like I'm reading this and I'm like, you know what? There's a whole lot of this in the media as we see it, and it's just going to continue to get worse.
At first books are replaced by entertainment, and eventually the government makes reading illegal and burns books to control ideas.
Who bans a book where the main theme is book banning?
Very primitive people, or very effective people. The book was removed and censored by US school districts for decades. It was edited by publishers to make it less.
It's so weird to think that like because it's kind of innocuous if you think about it. Like it's not really a book that's like telling you to go out and like do things. So it's very weird that it is censored. But I mean, you also have things like Ulysses, which is seen as one of the greatest works of art ever, that was also censored, but rightfully so. There was some gross, not even, it's not even that gross, but like some like lewd things in it, but
offensive. It was challenged in the media because it criticizes media, conformity, authority.
Ironic, isn't it?
This book showed me something uncomfortable. People in the book are constantly entertained. Big TVs, earbuds, quick news, shallow shows, no silence, no reflection.
And when was this book written?
1953.
This is not a book, but a prophecy.
Exactly.
I always love the old guy. He always like talks into like these. He always just uses big words, and
And it
I love
shows
this.
something.
I love these skits. I don't know if they're skits. I don't know if they're meant to be. I don't know how much of it is performative and how much is they're actually meaning the things. It seems like a little bit of both, but I love these
Else that
videos.
we only see today. If you never practice focus, your mind starts skipping. If you don't practice concentration, you completely lose the ability.
Distraction becomes control.
The government doesn't need to force obedience. The population is already distracted.
Okay. And a great example of this is the Super Bowl happened and more people are talking about that than a certain list. That's all you need to know. And again, I don't even it doesn't even shock me at this point the things that the people that are hungry for power will do. But it just goes to show that even in the midst of some of the most horrific revelations, people still will find something so unimportant important. And again, it's if you watch the game and you had a good time, fine. But it's the fact that we're still talking about it happened days ago. That really should tell you a lot about.
Because people choose comfort over that.
But not all is lost. The book makes an interesting point. Focus is resistance. Paying attention, thinking deeply, and reflecting is a form of rebellion. Focus is the currency of freedom. That's what the book prophesied in.
That's a focus is the currency of freedom. That is a very. I wonder if that's their quote or Ray Bradbury's, but this is something Osho said, and this is something that's like always stuck with me. Like, there's a few things he said that I'm like, to this day, I'm like, nobody said it better, and that's one of them is, if age gave you wisdom, then nursing homes would be full of wise people, but there are people in nursing homes that are very ignorant, that have not dealt with their own mortality, that have not dealt with certain realities of life, and what really gives you wisdom is introspection, is to think about the things that you've done, is to evaluate them, is to look back and look at your mistakes and see where you could have done them differently and see where in the future you could move on. And I think introspection is something that most of us lack today because if you're out here in the world and you're pointing the finger at a certain group or a certain type of people, or you're just, this person is the reason why my life is this way, like, you're missing the point of it. You're missing the fact that you have also consciously made some decisions. Now, there's some things that are outside of your control, but you could always in some way handle them better. You could always in some way turn that pain into inspiration, turn that thing that somebody did to you into your greatest strength. And I mean, I think I don't necessarily know if that's the angle he was going into, but I think this is something that we need to start embracing more and more today. Like, how often do you think about things? How often do you allow yourself to think about things versus how often do you go somebody for a certain take on things? Think about the news. The news isn't necessarily telling you the facts. The news is telling you the facts through someone else's lens. And we all have our favorite sources of news. We all have our favorite sources of where we get things from. But it's not enough to get the news. I advocate that the news is worthless and that it's just complete garbage and destroys your brain and creates fear and is meant to propagate certain ideas and keep you stagnant and keep you thinking about the world and instead of about things that you can do. But we need to reflect on these things. We need to evaluate these things. We need to think about these things. We need to understand that in every conversation you're in some way being sold something. You're in some way acting as both a salesman yourself and the other person's acting as a salesman to try to win you over to their side. So understand these things and be attentive to these things, think about these things, and be able to navigate in the world understanding these certain principles.
1953.
It sounds Machiavellian, but it's not really. It's just a play on the idea of the Platonic idea of forms.
So this book actually solved two problems for me. I received the manual to get back my focus and also the means. I started my reading habit 10 minutes in the morning. That book. I rebuilt my attention like a muscle.
10 minutes is enough.
Yeah, doesn't
It really is true. If you can focus, like put down your phone, meditate, read, go on a walk, get away from like the everyday hustle bustle of life for even 10 minutes, you're going to see such a benefit in terms of your ability to think, your ability to act, your ability to move in this world. And it doesn't take these grand habits. Like a lot of people like to break down their morning routine or their daily routine for success. It's not anything like that. It's just being able to direct your energy, your attention, your thoughts into an idea and be able to carry out on that idea. Be able to do this day after day after day. Think about a problem, sit with the problem, allow the answer to come to you and then act on that problem. I mean, these are just basic functions of the mind, but our mind is so lost in the wilderness of the mind. It's so lost in the everyday news, in the cycle of drama online, and all sorts of these other things. You won't be here for a while. No, you're good, man. That's I'm sorry. That sucks. Uh, things like that are just the worst kind of things. So yeah, you do you. I'm not holding it against you this time. Otherwise, I would. But yeah, I don't know if there's any chance of him getting better, her getting better. But I hope you can deal with that kind of stuff.
take much. Just no phone in the morning and always start the day with a book.
What was your second major problem?
FOMO, fear of missing out.
It sounds funny.
But it feels like a real fear. Always checking the news, always refreshing, always needing to be up to date.
And what is the book that saved you?
Brave New World, Aldous
All
Huxley.
right, here we go, Brave New
Isn't
World.
that about depression?
Actually, it's about a world where no one is oppressed because no one resists.
Uh-huh.
Everyone is stimulated. New.
And this is really what you see in when you think about social media. Just for a reminder, I have beautiful hair. Thank you. I was waiting for you to say that. I mentioned Brave New World earlier, but I'm going to reiterate the sort of ideas that I think are very prevalent in the modern day world is, you think about society, everything is it's nothing scary, nothing is confrontational, nothing is in any way forcing you to face the realities of life, the harshness of life, and we get caught in this bubble. We get caught in this set of ideas and these set of belief systems, and we're in these news cycles. We're in these cycles of, well, this thing's happening today, and it's the biggest deal ever, and then nothing happens, and then the next day, and then we get all enraged again, and it's the same thing with movies. A movie comes out, they change the race of a character, and everyone gets mad, and then the next day the same thing happens, and everyone gets mad again, and it's like nothing changes. It's all the same. It's all the same boring nonsense and you're falling for the same trap over and over again, but you can't think for 5 seconds to even break out of this cycle. You can't see the bigger picture. You can't take a step back. And essentially, there's a Huxley said this, and he said there's going to be a day and age where man is so distracted that he doesn't even see that he's in chains. And I think this is a lot of what's happening today is because you might have a job, you might have a family and all that sort of stuff, but like, are you ever really present? You could have the most successful life on paper, but like, are you actively engaged in those things? Are you actively, spending time in those activities, spending time in those things? Or are you more concerned about world events? Are you more concerned about entertainment? Are you so distracted that you're not even spending time with the people that you love? And you get what I'm saying. It's like you could be watching a movie with your family, but you're not really there with that person. You're not really asking them how their day was. You're not really doing anything with them. You're just kind of sitting there and being passive with them. Now, I see there's a little bonding in that, but it's so much deeper than that because our attention, our thoughts, our energy, our currency. Think of yourself as a Tesla. Think of yourself as an Einstein. We all have that little spark in us. We all have that little genius in us that is creativity. And when we're receptive to it and when we can use it for ourselves, that's where we can really change our lives. That's where we can really be unbounded by perception, as Blake would say. But you know, so few people are able to sit their creativity, sit with their own attention, sit with their own ideas, and even be bored. You know, boredom is really the precipice for creativity. Your mind needs to be empty before you can be receptive to anything that is not preconceived notion of things, not a set idea, not a set belief system. You need to be bored before you begin experimenting, before you begin finding new ways of entertaining yourself, finding new ways of thinking, finding new ways of approaching problems. There's a necessity to boredom. There's a necessity to calming your mind down so that you can get out of the wilderness of the mind, so that you can, for the first time in a very long time, have the presence and the awareness to say, you know what? I am not looking at this problem correctly. If I did it in this way, maybe it would just completely go smoothly, and it goes smoothly. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Pleasure, comfort, noise, soma, the substance in the book that keeps
My friend, the building he lives at is called Soma. And I was telling him this, and he was like I was horrified because I pulled up I was dropping something off to him, and I pulled up to the building, and it says Soma on it, and I'm like, have you ever read Aldous Huxley? He's like, no, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, uh, one of the most horrific dystopian novels ever. And there's a drug that they take whenever they're feeling anxious, whenever they're feeling like something is off about the world. They take this drug to put themselves to sleep or to feel happy. And that's what your building's named. And I wonder if that's intentional. I wonder if there's some Latin root or something that it means something that's why that building is called that. But like, if I was applying to an apartment building, I saw that's the name, I am not living there. It doesn't matter. It would just be too creepy to me to live in a building titled that. But he doesn't have the same connection as I do, or he doesn't have the same kind of feelings to that word as I do. So
everyone hooked is called
it was a nice
soma.
apartment though.
SOMA, to me, it's an acronym for social media. SOMA.
And the book was written in 1931.
Huxley also was George Orwell's tutor. Oh, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like German or something. He was tutoring him in another language, and Huxley, if you know anything about Huxley, his uncle is like one of the most like prestigious scientists of all time, and Huxley to me seems like kind of the black sheep of the family. But Huxley's uncle is literally the person that coined the term agnostic. That should just show you like he's up there in the British circles of elites and aristocracies. But Huxley was Orwell's tutor, and after Orwell wrote 1984, Huxley congratulated him on such a great work and basically wrote that you had the benefit of seeing World War II, so you were able to kind of capture certain events that I was not able to even foretell because, you know, Huxley's writing this after World War One, and he's kind of seeing the world in the developments after World War One, whereas Orwell wrote 1984 after World War Two. So that influence kind of got spliced. So that's really why you see the big difference in between the two. Um, and that's just some interesting historical context. And it's weird though. I was trying to find if they were friends or if they conversed later in life or if they had a mutual respect for each other, but there really wasn't that. And I think it's just because like it's probably like he just was like a TA or something. He was just like a guy teaching a class that Orwell probably just had to take, and he didn't really form any bond with him. But I just an interesting tidbit.
Can you believe it? Prophetic.
Who censored the book?
Ireland, South Africa, Australia. But only now you see the full warning in the book. You don't need to censor information if you overwhelm people with information.
Again, all of the information that's being leaked now is like pretty much just confirming stuff people were saying 10 years ago. There's no need for disclosure because it's already out there. Like it's so weird that people think that there's not just little clues that are just so public that like you can't help but see, and then it seems like 5 years later, like the consensus just kind of confirms. Like there's so many things I've just known for years. I'm not even talking about the current day news. Talking about things that were like 5 years old, 10 years old that like are just now becoming accepted.
That's why the
Hold
Suki
on.
stopped.
Man, I got scared for a second. I thought someone was hurt. All right. Now that we're back
Stopped
to it.
censoring the book. Distraction is more effective than censorship today.
Constant update.
You don't need to censor things if it's already out there, but there's just so much information and people are not going to go look for it. I mean, like even like a lot of the stuff I know I just get from books. And like there's people that are like, where do you know this stuff from? And it's just I just read a lot of books. I don't consume any news. I don't watch anything like that. I just read a lot of books and like it's all in there. It's telling you what's happening. It's telling you what's going on. And sometimes it makes me feel crazy for even like paying attention to these things because no one else does. And you're like, is there something wrong with me? But it's just the fact is that all the information that you could ever hope to learn is already out there. It's just we are oftentimes so distracted. We are oftentimes so worried about things that don't really matter. It's the wilderness of the mind. I love that saying. I got that from Mark Windows. Good channel.
It's create anxiety, not clarity. The need to stay informed means staying distracted from your mission.
So, FOMO is control.
Yes, you end up policing yourself, checking, refreshing, commenting, sharing.
What changed after the book?
No more news updates, no more news sites. I only talk directly to people.
Reading this book fixes not just your FOMO, it fixes your anxiety.
This world is run like a ghost train. And when you read this book, you're no longer afraid of the smoke and mirrors. Your anxiety disappears because you see the mechanics.
Think like how much of our anxiety is from the stuff we consume? How much of the problems we deal with is because all day long we're being bombarded with these ideas that the world is ending, that nothing matters, that this is this, that this is like, you know what I mean? And it's like when we start getting away from those collective smut peddlers, then we can get into a state where we can build something. Like, what does it matter if the whole world is burning if my world is good? And I'm not saying not to help other people. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like, what good is it for me to participate in the drama if I can't change it? What good is it for me to participate in this nonsense cycle of doom and gloom of doomsday prepping essentially if I don't if it doesn't affect my day to day?
What was major problem 3 in your life?
Power abuse. I trusted the power. That was a mistake.
Let me guess. Problem solved by Animal Farm.
Banned in the Soviet Union, Eastern
I was thinking he was gonna say 1984, but an Animal Farm's another good
Germany,
one.
UAE, many school districts in the US.
This book exposes how stupid the masses are still today. They trust slogans instead of.
It's not even the masses. It's I wonder if these people have read Gustave Le Bon. It's I think Gustave Le Bon put it best out of anyone. Although Jung is somewhat similar, but a group of people is only as smart as the collective held ideas of things. So it's like you can't reason with a crowd because a crowd is composed of both extremely smart people and extremely dumb people, and then you have to kind of find a way to talk to all of those people at once. So that's why a very articulate discussion is not going to be stimulating to the masses. It's because they want the blood and guts. They want the verbal insults. They want those sorts of things. There's no such thing as reasoning with a collective because none of those collective ideas hold those individual characteristics that we're trying to hit in the set beliefs of things. This is like, Gustave Le Bon went into like an interesting point too, because you have this is like an idea that you see popping up more and more is like, oh, you should have to have some sort of stake in order to vote. It's like, it's not going to change things because no matter what the group of people is comprised of, the group is always going to be very limited in their thinking faculties. They're going to be very emotional. They're going to be very irrational. That's how every group operates. So regardless of what restriction you put on vote, it's not going to solve anything. Like I've tried to like explain this to people, but like they just don't seem to get it. They're going with these idealistic slogans, and perhaps I'm trying to argue with people that are also part of collective movements and collective ideas, and maybe that's why.
actions. They trust leaders who sound moral. They don't trust their fellow people, but the system they are in.
Oh, and it makes people polarized. They think our side can never be wrong. The book opened my mind. The book showed me step by step how
Oh yeah, the other people are always the bad guy. The whole world is wrong, but we're right. I'm so sure of it. I couldn't imagine otherwise.
leaders use simple language to stop people from thinking, how rules quietly change while no one is paying attention, how memory is manipulated.
And that's why this book still
Think about how okay, so like I talked about Gustave Le Bon, but somebody that like took Gustave Le Bon and kind of warped his ideas and made them manipulative because Gustave Le Bon was just a psychologist trying to analyze crowds. It doesn't seem like he had any ulterior motive unless there is evidence to the contrary that I don't research authors that much, but to me he just seemed like somebody that was interested in this stuff. Again, he could be the most evil person ever. I don't care if you're bad. I just want to learn something from you. Like you know what I mean? It's like even if I learn what not to do, I just want to hear your perspective. I just want to hear the way you view the world so that I can know more ways of looking at the world. We have this weird idea of if somebody's bad or somebody's this or somebody's that, like we can't steal information from them. We can't see their intentions. We can't discern for ourselves what's right and wrong. So we can't even, go to that person as a source. It's very stupid. But Bernays took Gustave Le Bon's work and made it into something really, really insidious. Like, people talk about how Machiavelli and his work, The Prince, which is probably satirical. That's my interpretation of it. But people say that Machiavelli's The Prince is like one of the worst and most evil books ever written, but Edward Bernays' propaganda is one of the most vile things I've ever read because it's like 120, 130 pages of Bernays telling you that people are so stupid that they need to be directed in what to think, and narratives have to be controlled, and ideas and certain things have to be spun in a certain way so that people see them for what they are. People see them in their best light, and like this is literally a guy that like helped the government try to overthrow another government. Like he basically was the PR behind the is it Guatemala or Nicaragua? I can't remember, but he was the one that was responsible for like the World Fruit Company. Very, very creepy, very, very weird, but it's interesting to see these ideas in like actual application because Orwell is he's telling these sort of stories, he's telling these sort of things, but it's very weird how he's able to capture these fundamental workings of the political structure and put it into such a simplistic tale that children could understand. That's really the genius of Animal Farm is that story you could read at any age, enjoy it, and get what he's trying to say out of it. I think that's really the most profound aspect of it.
gets challenged.
I wonder if Animal Farm was unbanned because it's against communism overtly. It's also against systems of power in general, I think. But I think people read, oh, this power system is bad, so that means my power system is good. It's like it's not really how it works or how you should think about things, but okay, man, just go with it. So I wonder if Orwell was made if because Animal Farm was required reading in some of the classes at my schools. I it wasn't my class. I wish it was, but I wonder if it was to kind of push Cold War propaganda and push against communism.
It teaches you how power actually behaves every fucking day.
There's only one remedy for this grim world: reading, focusing, understanding, then exiting the Suki system with like minded people on your side.
Honor.
Okay, let's go back to this quote. There is only one remedy for this grim world: reading, focusing, understanding. And they're selling their they have like a community. Um, I'm not in it, but if that's your thing, go ahead, do that. But this is a good channel. This is the Grim. I like these videos. I think they're a mix of like these videos are very cinematic. It's very weird how they're able to do like this kind of thing. Well, we will go into the second video I have queued up. Let me just make sure I'm not I'm not blocking it. This is Carl Jung and the most important rule of life. I don't. I hope I haven't reacted to this one already. I'll like it so in the future I'll remember if I reacted to it. But this is Academy of Ideas. We haven't gone through one of their videos in a while, but they're always pretty good. I think he does a good job of summarizing these main ideas and putting it into informative things. So if you like the video while we're reacting it, please go check out his channel. Great stuff. You'll see him again on my channel, I promise you, because whenever I look up these ideas, he's one of the first people to come up. So you know that like he's the real deal.
Psychologist who closely collaborated with Carl Jung from 1933 until his death in 1961. One of von Braun's primary topics of interest was fairy tales, for like myths, fairy tales contain time.
Why do I know that name? Did she write? Oh, that was Jaffe. I'm guessing she's one of the. Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you've ever read Man and His Symbols, she writes part three, The Process of Individuation. That's where I know the name from. Okay. Because I know Jaffe was the one that helped Jung write his semi autobiography. But I was like, why do I remember this name? Maybe I should look into her stuff too. I wonder if she has any interesting interpretations. But it's always like anytime I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read one of Jung's students, I'm like, it's not Carl Jung though. It's like you got to go to the source to get the most interesting tidbits. Jung is the perfect combination of a mystic with a great scientific mind, and perhaps that's why I find him so fascinating. Is that he was able to operate both areas. I would say I don't really think that scientifically anymore. There was a point in my life where I was very much analytical, no creativity. I think I've swung in the other direction where most of my thoughts are creative, but I don't know. I just hate structure now. So that's more
Timeless
of a personal
wisdom
side,
that
but
teaches us about the human condition. Jung believed that so much wisdom was contained in the fairy tale that he once told von Franz that when you study fairy tales, you can study the anatomy of man.
so think of what a fairy tale is. And I think this is why they're so important. 'Cause what a fairy tale is, there was a time where not everyone could read and write. And how are you going to educate? How are you going to teach someone that can't pick up a book and read it how to learn the lessons of life? There's just the ability to store information and put it in a book and then come back to it later. Like, it, it, I can't even begin to imagine how scary that was to a primitive mind. And even the idea of it's just interesting to think about. But fairy tales were traditions that were passed down from generation upon generation to tell the next generation on how to. It's essentially the schooling of the philosophy that you should accept. So think about the Odyssey. The Odyssey it wasn't even written. It was originally told to bards, and then that bard would tell it to the next bard, and then it kind of became this collective sort of ideal of the entire society of Greece, and even survived to this day because that's how significant it was. And essentially, the symbols in the fairy tales are very intentional. If you think about Aesop's fables, like each animal has its certain characteristics, and they're meant to represent a different aspect of human psychology. And it's meant to be very easy because oh, that guy's a rat. That guy tells when he shouldn't tell. Like, where do you think these symbols come from? Where do you think when you call somebody a beast or an animal, where do you think these come from? It comes from the fairy tales. It comes from these collective unconscious ideas of certain psychological behaviors and certain patterns that we associate just through these tales. It's very interesting when you start breaking it down like this.
After years of interpreting fairy tales from cultures spanning the globe and throughout all periods of history, von Franz came to an important conclusion concerning the lessons they teach. No matter the message contained in a fairy tale, you can almost always find a contradicting message in another fairy tale. Von Franz called this the rule of contradiction, or as she explains, I can tell you stories which say that if you meet evil, you must fight it.
What's up, Environmad? How's it going, man? I haven't seen you forever. How long has it been? I was like, I was like just thinking, I was like, Where has he been?
But there are just as many which say you must run away and not try to fight it. Some say to suffer without hitting back, others say don't be a fool, hit back. There are stories which say that if you are confronted with evil, the only thing to do is lie your way out of it. Others say no, be honest, even towards the devil, and don't become involved with the lying. For all these I could give you examples, but it is always a yes and a no. There are just as many stories which say the one as the other.
So this is interesting. I've never, I mean, I guess I could think of examples of this, but I've never like thought this exact idea.
Upon discovering the rule of contradiction, von Franz was disappointed, as she hoped to find lessons that were timeless and indisputable. But after further reflection, she came to realize that the rule of contradiction makes sense. The challenges and predicaments of life are countless. There is no one path that is right for everyone,
You miss my live being in Australia. Oh, that's true. The time zone. Is it like late, like really late or really early right now or something?
and when faced with an ethical dilemma, it is in choosing between contradictory ways of dealing with it that we become an individual, or as von Franz explains, if collective material found in fairy tales is completely contradictory, if our basic ethical disposition is completely contradictory, only then is it possible for us to have an individual, responsible, free conscious superstructure over the basic opposites. Then we can say that in human nature it would be right to do this or that, but I am going to do this, the third thing, which is my individuality. There would
11:19 a.m. Oh, so it's not that bad. Okay. Oh, but if it's too late, then it's like okay, okay, I see. All right, so this is a sort of interesting idea is that it's the options, it's the yin yang that gives us any sort of reasoning. I don't necessarily agree with the point she's making, but I see what she's trying to say.
would be no individuality if the basic material were not contradictory. That was my comfort after having discovered the terrible truth of the contradictory structure.
There is like old philosophy, like Heraclitus. It kind of lives in contradictions. It kind of lives in paradox, and it's a very useful tool because think like a paradox forces you to really analyze your thoughts, really think about things in a different way. So if you're trying to remember things and you're using oral history and you're not able to capture information in the same way, a contradiction can in fact be way more beneficial because a simple contradiction or a simple line such as you can never step in the same river twice, that's something that's been debated since the day it was said by Heraclitus. And it's like there's more layers to unravel about that than entire, libraries. There's more that can be said about that one line than most of modern day fiction, most modern day nonfiction, most scientific stuff. There's more in that underlying principle than you could even hope to imagine. And I think there's a layer of that as well. Everything is very placebo. In what way?
There is, however, one exception to the rule of contradiction, one lesson that no fairy tale ever went against, and as von Franz tells us, this exception is that one must never hurt the helpful animal in fairy tales. In this video, we look at what this rule means in practical terms, why Jung believed it's so important to live in accordance with this rule, and how most people break it and suffer as a result. According to von Franz, unpacking the meaning of this rule is simple. The helpful animal in a fairy tale represents the intuitive inner voice that helps us distinguish between right and wrong.
So like your gut feeling. Jung believed that your gut feeling always knew what was right, and if you could listen to it in all moments, you would never be guided in the wrong direction. And this is in his work of synchronicity, which is some of his most interesting writing, but it's
Good and evil, and which pushes us towards certain paths in life and away from others. Obedience to one's most basic inner being, writes von Franz, one's instinctual inner being, is the one thing which is more essential than anything else. In all nations and all fairy tale material, I have never found a different statement.
so what she's saying is that this animal, this spirit guide, whatever you want to call it, is you. That your intuition, that your gut feeling is really your actual way of life. Like think you get a great opportunity, but for whatever reason it feels wrong and you don't take it and you go in a different direction and you find the answer you're looking for. That sort of idea of things that, you get news that should be good to you, but you feel like something's empty, you feel like something's hollow, and it's only years later when you're thinking back and you're like, I knew in that moment that I wouldn't be happy if I went down this path, but I did it anyway, and I really regret going that direction. That sort of idea of things.
The helpful animal in fairy tales, in other words, represents man's conscience, and as Jung writes, the etymology of the word conscience tells us that it is a special form of knowledge or consciousness. The peculiarity of conscience is that it is a knowledge of, or certainty about, the emotional value of the ideas we have concerning the motives of our actions. When faced with a moral dilemma,
Almost like Kierkegaard's leap of faith, like everything's telling you to do the opposite, but you stay steadfast and you have a calmness and you have an awareness and you just keep going. Your belief creates or projects. It's a placebo. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, I just didn't know in what way you were taking that, but yeah, I agree with
or
that.
significant life decision, our conscience often manifests as strong emotions and gut feelings impelling us towards certain actions and away from others. Sometimes these emotions will be of a negative sort, warning us not to do something. At other times, they will be positive and encourage us to take a certain action. In his essay, A Psychological View of Conscience, Jung notes that many cultures consider conscience to be an expression of God's will, which reveals the power of this human faculty. Obeying one's conscience is easy so long as its commands align with the ethical code of our society and the expectations of one's family and peer group.
Emerson said, "To be yourself in a world that seeks conformity is the greatest of achievements," and that's what he's talking about: following your intuition, following your own beliefs, being the salmon in the stream.
But sometimes our conscience conflicts with these things, creating a dilemma. Do we obey our conscience, or do we conform to the moral code of our society and the expectations of our social group? Or, as Jung writes, conscience, no matter on what it is based, commands the individual to obey his inner voice even at the risk of going astray. We can refuse to obey this command by an appeal to the moral code and the moral views on which it is founded, though with an uncomfortable feeling of having been disloyal. Most people have an innate terror of going against the social grain, and when faced with the dilemma of obeying their conscience or conforming, they take the latter path.
It's so much easier to be with the crowd because you have protection, because people around you, there's safety in numbers. There's this idea that if you do what everyone else says, you'll be okay. But what's far worse is your own judgment. What's far worse is knowing that in your heart you neglected to do what you were meant to do. You neglected to do what actually your real decision would be, but you did it out of cowardice. You did it because you weren't willing to face the scrutiny of people around you saying you're this, you're that. And there's a certain necessity for you to do this in life. I'm not sure if he's going to get into the ideas of the shadow or the ideas of the unconscious, but one of Jung's main principles is the shadow. And what is the shadow? The shadow is essentially the aspects of yourself that you neglect to be part of society, the aspects of yourself that you push to the background. So, your fears, the things that you're afraid to face, the things that you're afraid to do for fear of being ostracized. A lot of those end up in the shadow. A lot of those become unconscious forces that impel you in certain directions. Following the crowd takes no responsibility. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. I like that a lot. Thanks,
But
Environment.
when
I knew you were here for a reason.
we deny the call of our conscience, we are often left with a nagging feeling that we are living a lie. Or, as Jung explains, the observance of customs and laws can very easily be a cloak for a lie so subtle that our fellow human beings are unable to detect it. It may help us to escape all criticism, we may even be able to deceive ourselves in the belief of our obvious righteousness. But deep down, he hears a voice whispering, there is something not right, no matter how much his rightness is supported by public opinion or by the moral code.
Think of how many times you made the safe option in your life and you went kicking and screaming with it. Like think about the big decisions in your life. Did you do those for yourself or did you do those for others? And I think at least for me personally, the vast majority of the decisions I've ever made in my life. And I'm starting to catch up now. I'm starting to do things my own way and follow my own path now. But like a lot of the problems I'm dealing with right now, I don't have that many problems, but like the things that I struggle with now, the things that I have to face now are because I made certain decisions for the sake of comfort, for the sake of the crowd, for the sake of the collective, for the sake of the projections I thought I needed to be, the archetypes I needed to match, the things that people told me I needed to become. I made decisions in a certain way that led to a certain path that now I have to face, and it's like it feels awful because if I could go back, I would change the things. But I knew in that moment it wasn't right, and I still did it anyway. I knew I wouldn't be happy doing those things, but I still did it anyway. And it's this realization that I think once we can start finding ourselves on the path again, once we can start finding our own destiny, for lack of better terms, I think we can find a whole lot more out of life.
By spurring the voice of conscience, we break the one universal rule that von Franz discovered in her study of fairy tales. The Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky went as far as to suggest that it is our conscience that makes us truly human, and
The conformity experiment is a great example.
if we disobey it for
Was
too
that
long, we suffer immensely. Guilt, regret, shame,
our conscious is humanity? That's interesting because think like your conscious is what tells you what these other people are doing is wrong. Like the whole crowd could be doing something and that doesn't make it right. It's just that internal voice that shows that you're still human, that you still have empathy, that gives you reservations about certain things and certain ways of looking at stuff.
and a feeling of being an impostor eats us from within, and a sickness of self overtakes our being. Or as Joseph Frank explains in Dostoevsky, The Seeds of Revolt, this image of conscience as a natural and instinctive regulator of the human psyche, whose distortion or perversion leads to a literal sickness of the self, was to become one of the major themes of the great works of Dostoevsky.
That's an interesting way because now that I think of it, all of Dostoevsky's characters, or at least his notable characters or his main characters, they all have this like illness to them because of the way that they have neglected themselves, the way that they have followed the right path, followed the path of other people, followed the course that other people have laid out for them, and it's taken a toll on them physically. I never even noticed that aspect of things, but it makes a lot of sense.
For those who allow their conscience to guide them in the development of their individuality, Jung offers some words of caution. Along with a right or true conscience, which prompts us to take actions that better our life, and which helps us properly solve moral dilemmas, there is a wrong or false conscience, which exaggerates, perverts, and twists evil into good and good into evil, and it does so with the same compulsiveness and with the same emotional consequences as the right kind of conscience. Our demons, in other words, can mask themselves as the helpful animal of our true conscience and lead us down meaningless and destructive paths. Or, as Jung writes, close beside these, beside the positive right conscience, there stands the negative false conscience called the devil, seducing
He's literally, he's literally saying that there's the devil and the angel on the shoulder, which I think that to some degree there is because when faced with a problem, we always know, okay, if I do this, it's going to be difficult, but I can get it done. Or if I do this, I can take the easy way out. And I think there's always that, it's not always black and white, but there always is some sort of duality. There is, okay, this is a little bit better of a direction. I can face it in this way. I can do this. Or no, let me take the shortcut. Let me cheat. Let me do something that is not righteous, that is not good.
seducer, tempter, evil, spirit, etc. To avoid being seduced by our false conscience, Jung recommends that when faced with a particularly difficult moral dilemma, we slow down and not rush into action. Compulsive urges and a desire to act in haste are a sign that we are being guided by our false conscience, or as a favorite quote of Jung's put it, all haste is of the devil.
All haste is of the devil. That's a great way of putting it. Think about whenever you've tried to force something in life, it never went right. When you were desperate for somebody, they didn't want you. When you no longer cared about them, they came running back to you. Whenever you need money, you can't seem to find it. But whenever you don't, the opportunities seem to come right in front of you. It's the weirdest thing, and it will make any materialistic person, any completely non-metaphysical person, they will agree with you in this statement that when you don't need something, it comes into your life. But when you do, when you're desperate, it is as far away as possible.
And as von Franz writes, Jung has observed that if one stews long enough in the agonies of such a conflict, then somehow an inner line, an inner development becomes clear, which gives the individual enough certainty to continue on his way, even at the risk of committing an error. By slowing down, not acting in haste, and giving our unconscious mind enough time to stew on a moral dilemma, we are more likely to connect to the signals of our true conscience.
Okay, so what he's saying is the easiest way to explain this is through the example that I always give. But you're working on a project, you're working on a problem, you're doing something, and you can't seem to fix it. So you know what? You go take a break. You go to the bathroom, you go get some food, maybe you go on a walk. That's my favorite one to do when I'm stumped, when I'm stuck. And then you come back and you look at that problem and you have completely forgot about it. It's no longer in your mind. It's no longer wrapping around. You're no longer so fixated on it that you can see the problem and you instantly know the solution. How many times does that happen to you? That's what he's saying. It's the feeling of no patience is the rise of anxious vibration. Yeah. We don't have to get too into the metaphysics of it, but I agree. Have you read Reality Transurfing? Or is that from something else?
But when making a choice as to how to deal with a tough moral dilemma, we can never be certain beforehand that we are doing the right thing. To move forward in life, we must take a leap of faith and hope that it is our true conscience that is guiding us. Or, as Jung explains, in practice, it is very difficult to indicate the exact point at which the right conscience stops and the false one begins, and what the criterion is that divides one from the other. But if the voice of conscience is the voice of God, this voice must possess an incomparably higher authority than traditional morality. Anyone, therefore, who allows conscience this status should, for better or worse, put his trust in divine guidance and follow his conscience.
So this is Kierkegaard's idea of the leap of faith. And Kierkegaard's idea of the leap of faith is essentially his understanding of Abraham and Isaac. And if you don't know the story from the Bible, God told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and he was about to do it. And then God told him, I didn't actually want it. It was just your conviction and your setness on carrying this out, even though you knew this was wrong, that you had so much faith in me that you trusted that I would stop you. And it's this idea that ultimately you're being guided by something, and ultimately there's something that is telling you what to do. You just need to listen to it. You just need to have faith in it. You just need to accept it and follow it blindly. And it's not really something you can understand. It's something you have to feel. You have to sort of come to trust this intuition. You have to come to trust this gut feeling that guides you in a certain direction. And when you can start sensing it, then you can start following it. And when you follow it, you know it's the right thing to do.
Rather than give heed to conventional morality. But even if we are successful in detecting the signals of our true conscience, some may wonder if it is always worth heeding its counsel. Don't we
What's
risk
up,
alienating other people?
the rival? How do you say that? The rival, Lord Rival? Oh, you're a channel member too? When did that happen? Damn, thank you for being a channel member. How's it going? I'm pretty good.
People, and in some cases being shunned or ostracized by our social group? The South African writer Lorenz van der Post, who was heavily influenced by Jung, provides a powerful passage in his novel A Far Off Place that suggests that any costs of following our conscience pale in comparison to the costs that come to those too cowardly to follow it.
The cost in following our conscience pales in comparison to the cost of people that don't. That's a it's a very powerful way of saying it, but think about it. Like, if you live your life according to other people, then you will never have experienced what it means to be you. And in your dying breaths, all you will think about is the things that you didn't do because you wanted to be comfortable, because you wanted to fit in. Whereas if you go out and at least if you fail, you know you weren't good enough. You failed while doing the actual activity. You failed while daring greatly, as Teddy Roosevelt says. And there's there's some consolation in that. There's some justice in that. There's some acceptance in that. Whereas the other side of things, you never even knew. You never even put the potential out there. You never even made the attempt.
You see, every human being has his own inborn sense of contract with a life. He has, it is true, an important sense of contract with the community into which he has been
You never read any books. You went off the grid 19 years ago and loved listening, learning, and practicing. Okay, fair enough. Why don't you like reading books? Explain that to me. I don't think I'll ever understand that. I just like working my imagination. That's why I like reading books. Like there's just reading Lovecraft or reading Kafka or reading Borges. I mean, there's some interesting elements to that, but I definitely see if you're off the grid and you're surrounded by nature, I would just spend time in nature too. I get that.
born. But above that is his own special contract with a life itself. This contract is entirely between him and life, and nothing, not even the community, can be allowed to suppress it if it should drive him into conflict with it. This contract is in the keeping of its own voice, a voice we call conscience, and no man can refuse to disobey this voice and ever know peace again.
So essentially, he's saying there's a path laid out for you, and all you need to do is take it, face the consequences, face the fear, and follow it, and you'll be happy. But if you don't, you'll always be missing out.
Believe me, this unease, this disquiet and enmity of neighbors that has come into our lives,
You're assuming there's a book club somewhere? Um, no, I need to make one. I mean, nobody's really like, let me iron out the details and we can do that. But everyone says that and then nobody actually follows through. But let me let me start actually doing. I'll come up with something. I can make posts on the members only tab and then uh give out assignments and then do a live stream off that. How does that sound? I feel like that's pretty good, right?
because they have found us guilty of having broken our contract with society, is a peace that passes all understanding in comparison with what would happen to us if we broke the special sense of contract that you and I have with a life itself. This channel is made possible by individuals like you.
All right, good channel. I subscribed to them a while ago. Um, how long am I streaming for? Let me just check. An hour. I'll go a little longer. I'll go through this video. I don't know if we've
This
gone through
after
this
school
video. Thing is, even if I react to a video I've already reacted to, one, people probably haven't seen me react to it, and two, I don't prepare anything, so it's going to be brand new ideas, brand new examples and stuff. So I don't necessarily think it's an issue, but I do have to start liking the stuff that I've already reacted to on stream because it's been like years now at this point that I've been streaming. So should I do books that are like public domain so that nobody has to pay for it? I wonder because I don't want like. I mean, I guess I could do books that like we all go out and get, but like I feel like it would be the best of both worlds if I find things that are like easy to find, like you get on Project Gutenberg or online somewhere, so that like you don't have to invest any of your time because there's an endless amount of books to be read that are completely free online that have so much more value than anything that's coming out recently. So I might do something like that. Or oh, you know what I'll do? Self-Reliance by Emerson. That's gonna be the first one. I'm excited. I'll reread it. We'll do a stream about it. It'll be fun.
presentation was written and narrated by Eternalite.
Eternalize is another really good channel. Um, their philosophy. I was thinking of Agrippa's Diary. It's a philosophy channel. It's good as well. I react to it all the time. But this is after school. I guess they did some sort of collaboration. There's a good chance I react to this.
Swiss
How old is this
psychologist
video?
Carl Jung saw how the modern
3 years.
materialistic world of money, pleasure, fame, and power did not lead to happiness, but rather an increasing sense of meaninglessness, anxiety, suffering, and loneliness.
I mean, really, all these things are like the way I see Jungian psychology is that all outward progress, all outward ambition is projection of I don't like myself. And I know like obviously that's oversimplified. Obviously like people want comfort to a certain degree, but think about like the need of like a Bezos or the need of an Elon to be liked by everybody. It's not enough to have more money, but they also have to do these outwardly facing public things to get attention and do things. Like Bezos spent $1 billion on a wedding. What else is that aside from I want people to think I can do this sort of thing. I want to show off. Like, imagine if you just went to some mountain somewhere. It could be far more beautiful than anything that you could plan, and it would be so much more beautiful because it's just you and that other person, and I don't know, a monk up there or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's these things that people do just for the sake of other people liking them, and all that is if enough people say I'm good, I will finally, when I look in the mirror, say I like myself. Like all needs for worldly pursuits are just that sort of thing. And then really what we're looking for is fulfillment. Really what we're looking for is satisfaction, is some deeper layer to what we're doing. So, when you wake up in the morning, why are you going to work? When you wake up in the morning, why are you doing this certain thing? Why are you engaging in certain activities? And do you see the deeper layer behind it? Because it doesn't even have to be that like you do your passion. Like you could just have a job that you do to the best of your abilities, and when you go home, you spend time with your family, or you go home and you train jujitsu, or you go home and you go to the gym. Like what are you working towards? What are you building towards? What's the foundation? What is the deeper purpose aside from the accumulation of resources? And that's really how we should start viewing the world. We should stop focusing so much on keeping up with the Joneses, on getting a faster car than everyone, on getting a nicer house, on wearing the nicest clothes, on all those sorts of material pursuits, because material pursuits are a very fickle way of finding happiness because you'll always want more. You buy a supercar, the next year, the next version is that much better. It's the most idiotic thing to think that any amount of things will make you happy. Yes, to completely love ourselves. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's if you can accept who you are and if you can accept your shortcomings in every aspect of yourself and start working towards something, I think you'll be eternally happy. And it doesn't even need to be like greatness. Like think about the people that like need greatness in this world. That's because there's a very, very, very young kid that was never given the satisfaction of a pat on the back, and they're trying to prove the entire world wrong so that their father might like them. It's when you really break it down, it's very like sad.
He sought to bring our attention back to the search of our soul and to restore our connection with the self, our innermost sanctuary. Life is a journey of discovering ourself, which is our true and complete personality, consisting of both our conscious and unconscious lives. This is what Jung calls the individuation process, our journey of psychological maturation.
And really, what the individuation process is going out and trying new things, going out and facing your fears, doing the things that you told yourself you were going to do years ago but you haven't done yet, trying that new sport, trying that new hobby, going out there and finding all that you want to out of life. If you had an urge to go play video games, go play video games. If you had an urge to go out into nature, go out into nature. If you got to do the things that you say you're going to do, or else they will forever haunt you.
It is the indestructible foundation that supports us when we can no longer support ourselves. like a rock that the waves keep crashing over, standing unmoved despite the raging of the sea. To be in contact with this deeper part of ourself is to be in a state of tranquility, undisturbed by wild emotional fluctuations. The goal in life is not perfection, but wholeness. For Jung, there are two stages of life that are part of individuation. The first
The goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. And that's what I said earlier. Like wholeness is acceptance. Like you are good with who you are. Like you'll never be a perfect person, but you know your faults and you know how you can curtail them to be better. So like, for me, like there was just excess emotional energy and it used to manifest as me being super hard on myself, but instead of putting my emotions to something generative, I put my emotions to creativity, to this channel, to my writings, to various other aspects of my personality and my character. And it's knowing who I am and knowing what I need to do in order to be the best version of myself, in order to use my potential to the fullest. And I'm not talking about potential in terms of changing the world. I'm talking about potential as in I am potential energy, and if I don't use it for something good, it will be used for something bad. Fear and desire create lack and emptiness that requires something external to fill it, but it can't. It's external. Interesting. I always thought of it as fear and desire creates confusion that makes you think that there's an external answer. But when you have calmness, when you have presence, when you have awareness, when you are just in the moment, you don't even think about the necessity to have things. There's a I don't know if that makes any sense what I just said.
half of life is oriented towards the outer world, work, education, relationships, etc. We must throw ourselves into the fire of life and expose ourselves to daily life and hard work, which solidifies our personality. Natural life is the nourishing soul of the soil, which provides a rich source of nutrients that heals us. This is why contact with nature is important. We mustn't get lost in abstract.
This is the Emerson ideal in that the simplicity of nature brings out the simplicity of you. That, simply just observing nature as it should be brings you back to the grounding that you are also part of this and that things aren't as complex as you make them out to be. But the more we exist in this world, the harder it is to remember these things. It's like a tornado. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And we've been in these cycles of ideas for so long that we don't even remember what it is to exist outside of them.
Thinking to the detriment of practical life. It is the body, the feeling, the instinct which connects us with the soil. In his old age, Jung continued to value this way of life. He wrote, "I have done without electricity and tend a fireplace and stove myself. Evenings, I light the old lamps.
I cannot wait to like get out away from things. Like obviously there's some good aspects of being surrounded by society. Like, there's stores you want to go to and it's easy to get stuff, but I feel like it comes at the expense of your soul. Like I don't know about you, but every time I'm in a city, I just feel so uneasy because it doesn't feel like there's any space, there's any room, there's any I don't know, because everyone just lives on top of each other and there's this like anxiety and there's this hustle bustle nature to things. It's completely just against everything I
There's
believe.
no running water, and I pump the water from the well. I chop the wood and cook the food. These simple acts make man simple, and how difficult it is to be simple. This anchoring in reality is a prerequisite for the second half of life, where our focus shifts to our inner world, our quest for individuation. And this is the phase of life Jung is mostly concerned with, the realm of the unconscious.
I think Jung has a quote, life doesn't begin before the age of, or life begins at the age of 40. And really what he's saying is that we've reached the level of maturity that we can finally start to think about things. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think whenever you like put like such a generalization like that, you're always gonna, there's gonna be things that fall through the crack. There's gonna be individuals that figure it out much sooner. I mean, Jesus died at 33, like whether you believe he's a real person or not, but I think he had things figured out. But
World of the inner life is as infinite as the world of the outer life. Man lives in two worlds. Many people
Dude, After School is really good. I just don't want to react to too many of them because I feel like I don't know. At a certain point, it feels like, dude, get your own content. You know what I mean? Like if all I do is react to them, then I'll just feel bad. You know what I mean? Like I can't figure out my own things to talk about. I have to use them for every sort of idea that I have. So I just feel bad, but I've reacted to a whole lot of them for sure.
however, have neglected this part of themselves and only remain half alive. They are unprepared by the natural transition into the second half of life and fall into a midlife crisis because they have not learned to align both worlds. When we are confronted with the
So the conscious is just the things that you remember, the things that you need for your day-to-day life, and the unconscious is every experience that you've ever had that you can't remember, that you can't recall, but still affects you. So like, if you struggle with public speaking, maybe at some point in your early years of schooling, your teacher yelled at you and the whole class laughed at you, and now you're afraid of public ridicule. It could be something like that completely has debilitating aspects and you don't even remember it. And that's really where dream analysis comes in. That's really where Jung and Freud kind of agree, perhaps the most. Actually, they very much don't agree on dreams at all. But um through our dreams we get a peek into the unconscious, we get a peek into the symbols that rule us, the archetypes and the set ideas that we're struggling with. And if you could grasp anything from your dream, then you really know what you need to do next in life.
real and crushing problems of life, we desperately search for our soul. We realize that the values we have learned from society provides no help to us. Conformity is the great destroyer of selfhood. The opposite to courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity.
I feel like we just talked about that and we just went over that so much. I will use the Emerson quote again. To be yourself in a world that seeks conformity is the greatest of achievement. And in fact, it's the only achievement because only you're you. Only you can give your unique grasp and your unique lens on the world. Think of Tesla, think of Einstein. Without those two minds, we would not be where we are today. Probably not be speaking or be communicating. I wouldn't be speaking to you guys through the medium I'm speaking to you because their advancements are fundamental to the way the world operates. And these really weren't scientific minds, these were creative minds. These were creative minds that used science as a medium. And that's really what I'm telling you to do is it's find your niche, find your thing, find your unique way of looking at the world and share that with us. That's really the only way to be a functioning, productive member of society. We have enough drones, we have enough NPCs, we have enough people that are going to sit down and shut up and follow orders. We don't have enough people that are going to be them. I should research the conformity experiment later. What is it? Is it the Stanford? Is it the Stanford marshmallow experiment where like the old CEO of YouTube won and it was like testing if kids could sit still and understand delayed gratification, which was really just obedience. Is it that one?
We
There's
are
there's so many tests that like you know what I mean? Like
often
I'm shocked I've
persuaded
never
to
heard of
take
it,
the
but
apparently easier road of merging with the crowd and forgetting ourselves. It requires courage to stand against the crowd. A person can be surrounded by a crowd of people and yet feel completely alone because he's alienated from himself. The search for the soul is a solitary task, and when we avoid the soul, it keeps on stirring, it disturbs us, makes us restless, and gives us no peace.
the other thing about this is I can't tell you what to do. You have to do it yourself. Like I can't tell you what direction you need to go. Only you can know because only you have experienced the things you've experienced. Only you know deep down who you really are. So it's like how Dante ended uh the Divine Comedy. you have to go into the world to experience God. You have to go out in the world to experience your soul, is this essentially what I'm trying to say.
However, these problems are important. They are incentives for us to undertake soul work. Without the trials and tribulations of life, we aren't likely to summon the determination to overcome the indifference of daily life. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. The gate that leads to destruction is broad, and many enter through it, but the gateway to peace is narrow, and
Conformity, self-reliance, we'll say.
none may enter save through affliction of the soul. It is wise to nourish the soul, otherwise you'll breed dragons and devils in your heart. Every psychic advance of man arises from the suffering of the soul.
Every psychic advance of man arises from the suffering of the soul. My favorite way that I've heard this said is every sorrow deepens your joy by Khalil Gibran. Is that's where that quote comes from. Um, but essentially what it means is you can't understand happiness without understanding sadness. Like there's a certain reality that sadness gives us perspective. Sadness gives us the ability to contrast, what's light without dark. You can't have one without the other. And this almost goes to the idea that Nietzsche loved so much, amor fati, the Stoic idea of love your fate, love everything that happens to you because it makes you who you are and it builds you to be strong enough to face the trials of the future.
Embrace your grief, for there your soul will grow. Like the primitive indigenous tribesmen, Jung recognized that
And I want you to think of like, okay, maybe this isn't a good example because maybe this hasn't been the case for you, but when I look back, because I deal with failure in a set way, like when something goes wrong in my life, like it hits me hard for like a day or so, but then something inside me like just sucks it up and goes, all right, I don't want to feel like this ever again. How am I going to move on? How am I going to be better? How am I going to do things differently? What does this mean? Like, why is this a good thing? What can I learn from this? And in what way can I come back better? Because it's not until we fail that we know what we have to do. It's not until we experience failure that we know our path was wrong, that we know the way we were doing things were incorrect. Think you can wing things up until you fail, and then you have to go back to the drawing board. So in fact, failure sets up your success because it gives you the steps that you need in order to succeed. If you won the lottery today, would it mean as much if you built a business and made that same amount of money in a year? Promise you it would mean so much more if you built that business.
the loss of soul leads to a sense of meaninglessness in life. When a tribe of people lose their feeling that their way of life is worthwhile, they may stop reproducing, or in large numbers simply lie down and die beside streams full of fish. Food is not the primary nourishment of man. In place of our current banal life, Jung would ask us to embark on a great adventure of self-knowledge, which comes upon investigating one's inner world, the unconscious realm. And for Jung, this is the true journey of life.
The easiest way to start analyzing yourself is look to what you hate about others. Look to what you hate about the world. I seem like a stalwart man. Uh, sometimes I'm not that good at dealing with stuff. You, I'm not good with dealing with a lot of small things at once. Like you give me a lot of like if my computer's not working and I'm trying to look at something, I'll become angry. But like if the whole world's falling down, I'm okay. I don't know how to explain it. It's the weirdest thing. But like big setbacks really don't bother me. It's the little ones that get in my way. But I don't know. I guess I got to deal with that better. The easiest way to look at the world, though, or I mean, to look at yourself, look at your internal world, is to look at what you hate about the world. Look at what you hate about people that you don't like, because there's an element of you in that. It's projection. It's you're not able to look at yourself and hate yourself because you're yourself. It's like a defense mechanism. So what you hate about others, there's a layer of yourself in there that you despise. So if you hate other people because they talk behind other people's back, well, maybe you're not talking behind other people's back, but you're judging them for sure. Things like that. there's always in every insult you put towards somebody, there's always a layer of truth about yourself. And the more you can start analyzing this and the more you can start thinking about these things, the less you're going to feel the need to insult people because, you know, there was a time in my life where I was very negative. There's a time in my life where I would always try to bring people down, but now it's like a healthy conscience doesn't need to bring people down. A healthy mind doesn't need to point to other people and say, well, this person sucks, this person sucks, this person sucks. Like I'm good with who I am. I can walk into any room and not start judging people, not start saying, well, this person looks like this kind of person. Like I'm good. I like myself enough where that's not even a thing anymore. And there's a point in my life where like I don't know, you would hear good news about someone and I'd immediately try to tear them down. And I'm like looking back, it's like I'm just cringing with all the times that I did that because it's like think of how many people told me good news, how many of my friends told me that they did something great, and I immediately tried to tell them, well, it's not, that doesn't mean that much. It's like I used to be such an asshole. I still am an asshole, but like, you know, you get better, you get better. You mature with age. Hopefully. I don't think a lot of people mature, but
Without the soul, the body is dead. And without the body, the soul is unreal. The soul is the home of our supreme values. Dreams are the guiding words of the soul. We must carry them in our heart and
dream analysis is very difficult unless you understand symbols. So that's why I didn't mention dream analysis as the way to find what it is that you need, because you need to do years and years of understanding symbols and symbol manipulation. It's not just understanding symbols, it's understanding what those symbols mean to you and in the context of your dream as well. Basically, if people are attacking you in your dream, that's really you attacking yourself. If people are mean to you in your dream, that's you are mean to yourself. Like any characteristic you put on other people in your dream is really it's all self-hatred.
go back and forth over them in our mind, like the words of the person dearest to us. The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul, opening into that cosmic night which was psyche long before there was
We mature with awareness, not so much age yet for sure. I don't know if you're here yet, Environment, but I was talking about introspection is how you mature, is how you get more wise. Do I see ever see a lowlier version of yourself in some people, younger, immature man who were at some point such that you wince at them? I mean, isn't that just projection? I guess so. Like I see people like I'll be talking to somebody about something and I'll like you know how it is now like you say a certain word, you talk about a certain idea and their mind just isn't able to get over the label. So like in some weird way, I'm like, yeah, I was there a few years ago where I worried too much about labels, where I worried too much about being part of a group or accepting certain ideals, and I would react the same way. But I mean, I don't necessarily wince at them because, hopefully they'll come on in their own time. I mean, I don't think judging people does anything except, you know, judge yourself. Any judgment you put on yourself is really how hard you're judging yourself. So like I don't necessarily view the world through that mirror anymore. And it's also like the time I would wince at somebody that would that I would like kind of see myself in, like I wince at that version of myself. Like I don't know, I'm far harder on myself than I am on other people, if that makes sense.
any ego consciousness. Apart from dreams, Jung developed the technique of active imagination, where you have a dialogue with different parts
Do not do this. I would not do active imagination unless you're like a master of lucid dreaming or astral projection or meditation or kundalini. Like it's very could be scary if you're not like well versed in the mind. So I wouldn't suggest doing it.
parts of yourself that live in the unconscious. It is similar to dreaming, except that you are fully awake and
It's like somewhat conscious daydreaming. I don't know how to explain it. It's like something that kind of just happens. But if you've read Jung's Red Book, that's what it is. So like you might think that Jung's Red Book is he's dreaming these things, he's not dreaming these things, he's allowing his mind to kind of guide him in a certain direction and teach him a certain thing through these Gnostic symbols, I guess you would call them. It's a very weird book.
conscious during the experience. He discovered this technique when he experienced the dark night of the soul, or what he calls his confrontation with the unconscious, a midlife existential catastrophe in which he was overwhelmed with visions and plunged into unknown depths. It was as though he experienced a psychological death,
I'll tell you why this happened if he doesn't do it
and
himself.
he decided that outer death is better than inner death. For that reason, he turned away and sought the place of the inner life, and thus began his search for his soul. This led to one of the greatest contributions to mankind.
One of the most interesting books you'll ever read, but you won't understand any of it. It reminds me a lot of Ulysses in that way. If you can pull anything from this book, you're going to pull a whole lot of life. But it's not really a book that could ever be 100% understood, just like no dream could ever be 100% interpreted. And I think that's the point of it. It's almost like a Borgian story, a Borges story. I don't know why I said Borges Ian. It's so hard to say. Or like a writing from Blake. Like you're not gonna understand it because it's not of this world. It's of the wilderness of the mind, the chaos of everything. It's you see the world through a certain lens, but you have experiences that encompass everything. So imagine trying to interpret everything that you've ever experienced all at once, combined into set symbols and combined into set ideas. It's almost impossible. But why he wrote this book, I think it was like 1919 is when he finished it. And it was originally called Young's Black Books, and it wasn't published till 50 years after he died. It was published in like 2012 as the Red Books, and the scribbling is crazy. Like it's I don't know if it's just because it's another language, but it doesn't look legible at all. It's all over the place. And basically, he wrote it because he wrote The Psychology of the Unconscious, which essentially was his like first notable work, but it was his first time stepping out of Freud's shadow. Freud basically tried to groom Jung to become the next Freud and continue on his legacy and in fact make Freud's legacy even greater by proxy. But Jung disagreed with Freud on some fundamental parts, published the book. Freud separated from him. Jung lost all his credibility, all his status, all the work that he'd ever done in his life was kind of for nothing. So this is really the period that pushed him to kind of go through these experiences. And on the title page or the first page of the book, it says something along the lines of, "This might seem like pure madness, but it's in fact the inspiration for all of my genius." And really, what Jung is saying is that he had to go to the depths of hell to confront his psyche, to come back better and be the best doctor he could be.
The Red Book. Jung wrote, my soul, where are you? Do you hear me? I speak, I call you. Are you there? I have returned. I am here again. I've shaken the dust of all the lands from my feet, and I've come to you. I am with you. After long years of long wandering, I've come to you again. There is only one way to the soul, and that is your way. There is only one salvation, and that is your salvation. If the path before you is clear, you're
It's an individual experience as well. That's why there's not one set path. That's why you'll hear different advice from different people, and it's all pointing you in the same direction. It's about self-exploration.
probably on someone else's. Each one must go his own way. Hence, look into yourself, for you must fulfill the way that is in you. When we are in contact with our inner self, we are more likely to experience synchronicities, that is, meaningful patterns in life where the inner world is seen to have a correspondence.
Think of angel numbers, think of the feeling of deja vu, think of just a gut feeling that kind of guides you in the right direction. You had no reason to know it was right, but it was right. That sort of
In
thing.
external reality, the first step towards individuation is the integration of the shadow. This is not our
This is all very liturgical. I don't know what that means. My vocabulary is not that great. I feel like it is, but it isn't. I don't like consciously. Oh, okay. Like you're saying religious. I was guessing that's what it was, but in a certain way it is because the Red Book has what is it called? There's a section of it that's just the Gnostic allegory that Jung somehow pulled from his unconscious and basically brought back into popularity. Um, when you get into Jung's more spiritual ideas, he kind of believed in a Godhead and that consciousness is God. So that's the relation. Do you know what Gnosticism is? Because I'm throwing around that word, and if you know what that means, it makes sense. But essentially, that God is knowledge, God is wisdom, God is awareness, and that if you experience any sort of wisdom, knowledge, or awareness, you experience God. That sort of thing. There's very much of a correlation with that. Yeah, and that's why it correlates with spiritual tradition, because Gnosticism is kind of just the esoteric form of Christianity. In some ways, it's a little different.
enemy, but
Depends what sect.
our ally. It contains pure gold waiting to be integrated into our personality. It becomes dark only when it is ignored. We must learn to watch our emotional impulses and be aware of projecting our own problems onto other innocent people. It is only after the encounter with the shadow that we can move on to the deepest part of the soul, which Jung calls the anima, the female psychological tendencies in man, and the animus, the male psychological tendencies.
Yeah, the whole path to salvation through understanding. So I think it makes it boring. Like I'd rather read William Blake than study Gnosticism. I don't know. I feel like Blake has the best sort of way of representing those ideas.
In women. These are the contrasexual soul images in our psyche. While the integration of the shadow is the apprentice piece, the soul image is the masterpiece. The integration of the anima is done through taking seriously the feelings, moods, and fantasies of the unconscious and bringing them into reality through creative work such as painting, writing,
How you integrate your anima, very simply, is what you look for in a relationship is what you're looking for in yourself. So if you're looking for support, you need to give yourself support. If you're looking for nurturing, you need to nurture yourself. If you're looking for acceptance, you need to accept yourself. The traits and characteristics that you find most appealing in others is what you need to find in yourself. Because think about it this way, like that person's a person, they have their own baggage, they have their own stuff they're dealing with, and how could that person ever perfectly cater to you? And that's why relationships fail. It's because that person might fit that animal archetype, they might fit that divine feminine archetype, but they don't live up to it because how could you ever live up to an ideal? And that's why you need to give it to yourself. Otherwise, you'll never be happy in a relationship. That's the simplest way to put repairing your anima. It doesn't have to go any deeper than that because if you just work with that idea of things, I think you'll solve it. That's really what happened with me. Once I understood that in that simple way, everything kind of worked out.
sculpture, or musical composition. The anima is the source of life, and when it is not integrated, we feel lifeless and depressed. It enriches our life by making the unconscious contents conscious. The animus, on the other hand, is the source of meaning. It gives our unconscious contents meaning in the outer world. It endows a woman with qualities of initiative, courage, objectivity, and spiritual wisdom, avoiding cold and destructive reflections or hidden.
Think of like you need to be balanced. Everyone's gonna have their own metric of balance, but if you're outwardly very masculine, then you have a very feminine anima. So like think of like the most masculine people, like you think of like a prisoner who like loses his cool and goes to jail for the rest of his life because he couldn't control his emotions. And it's that idea. It's that if you're very outwardly strong, you're going to be very inwardly emotional. And it's vice versa. Very outwardly emotional, very inwardly strong. It's think of Newton's laws of physics, equal but opposite reaction. That sort of thing.
conviction.
Newton was all the weirdest part about Newton is Newton was also an alchemist, so I feel like a lot of his ideas he's just ripping off of Hermeticism. It's like I feel like he's just contextualizing these ideas that are from Hermes Trismegistus into just science. I mean that's what like Goethe did. Like he took his idea of colors is just Plato's idea of forms, but he put it into a different context. I'm reading Gurdjieff right now, and what he said is that like most scientific discoveries are just reworkings of old understood principles put into the scientific context. But I read that I'm like, oh wow, that's there's something really awesome there.
About how life ought to be, as if stuck in a cocoon of dreamy thoughts, which cuts a woman off from the reality of life. The integration of the soul image is what carves a path to the most fundamental figure, the self. Wholeness can only be achieved through a union of opposites, in which our light and dark side are united. Jung's individuation process is analogous to the great work of the alchemists, where the philosopher's stone is a symbol of the
It's the same.
self.
It's the same. The thing that people miss about alchemy is they made it about changing lead into gold to hide very controversial religious beliefs in plain sight under the guise of scientific madness or scientific progress. It was really about the purification of the soul. Someone tried to argue this with me in the comments. He said, "Oh, Jung stole this idea." No, to the alchemist, the old alchemist, and I don't know how much I believe this or not, but turning lead into gold was much simpler than purifying the soul from something that it is until something better. The lapis.
Which is found within oneself. For Jung, the
What
task
Gurdjieff
of
book?
alchemy is psychological. It is the art of
Meanings of
expanding
Remarkable Men.
consciousness, of self-realization. When we have lost our way or do not know what to do with our life, we can only surrender to the
I'm only like 20 pages in. Don't spoil it. I'm excited so far. It's really good. It's really interesting. I haven't read anything this interesting in a very long time. Actually, no, that's not true. I read the Dante's Inferno recently, which I can't stop thinking about. But
higher wisdom of the self, our constant inner companion through life. Jung did not see himself as a healer, but as someone who could guide you to heal yourself. The cure ought to grow naturally out of the wounded individual. This search for ourself allows for empathy, mutual understanding, and a desire to become an ally in other people's journeys towards psychological maturation.
think about this. If you can help yourself, then it's easier to help others. And if you direct your life in that way, then it's not selfish. I think people have this weird idea of selfishness is that all work on yourself is selfish because it's for some sort of non-altruistic goal. But if you do it for the sake of others, if you do it for the sake of the people that you love the most, then it is the greatest gift you can give to others.
Thus, we improve our relationship with ourselves, with others, and with nature. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. We do not require any esoteric knowledge to be in contact with the self. Anyone can take the time to look within, to reflect on life's meaning, to give time and attention to values, interests, and
Think of the Zen Buddhist phrase, sleep when you're tired, eat when you're hungry. That's how you should live your life. I feel if it's for the benefit of all, yeah, sure.
activities that bring joy and fulfillment to one's personal life. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes.
Wow. Okay. think to the people that want to change the whole world, I'm going to point the finger at you. You did this. You did this. You're the reason why I'm here. Versus the person who looks inwards. They awake because they can change things. But that said, I'm going to end the stream. I feel like I'm losing my voice. I'll be back on Friday streaming. I will post something for members only about the book club. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but we will probably read Emerson's essay. I have not read Self-Reliance in like a year or so, so I'm excited to dive back into that. It's like 14 pages, so it's a nice, easy thing to start off reading. I don't know if I want to do like full full books yet until I have the format down, because I think like reading a full book, I don't know if I'd be good at reviewing a full book because I just pick out ideas. So I think that'll be good. But we can always change things. We can always adapt things. We'll just play it by ear. But stay tuned for those things. Good seeing you, Enviromag. I feel like it's been like a very long time since I caught you in a stream, and we got to have a little back and forth. But yeah, with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your night. Peace out.